We're talking about the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks without Luka Dončić. The Dallas Mavericks without Kyrie Irving for some of the season. Let's dig into the big questions. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and that's the way it's going to be, little darling. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. I've said this before and I'll say it again. We are here to start the team preview series where we talk to the hosts of the Locked On Podcast networks, individual NBA shows. We cover a few questions about the team. I'm not talking ADPs, I'm not talking fantasy value. We're talking to the guys that cover the team about the pressing questions that will then influence our decisions for drafts, for trades, for waiver wire moves. So we'll get into it, and we're going to start with the Dallas Mavericks. So we are starting with the Dallas Mavericks, and to do that, we are talking to a man who has made the transition from the most popular man in Slovenia to now being the most popular man in Maine. Big transition for Nick Angstadt. Nick, welcome to the show as we talk Dallas Mavericks.
I don't think I'm the main event, but I think that my audience has definitely changed over the last 6 months or so for reasons that, are just unclear to me.
You're not. Yeah, it's a complete mystery as to why the demographics have switched as much as they have. But that's just something that happens, isn't it? We all have to make adjustments. Of course, Nick is the host or one of the hosts of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, and he is, of course, my boss. So I've got to be very nice. I've got to be very kind. I've got to be very schmoozy here as we talk to Nick and just make sure that he's knows how much I love him and how important he is to me and everyone in my life as we talk about this Dallas Mavericks team, which of course, Nick, was a complete disaster at times last season with moves that some may say are controversial, but we don't need to harp on that sort of stuff because there are other things that have happened which some might consider disastrous as well, but that's okay. But we want to talk about some important questions that you don't need to talk about the fantasy value of these things. We need to see it on the ground, boots on the ground. We need to talk about the value of some of these players or certain situations that are important across the Dallas Mavericks. So let's just start with the number one thing that I think people are going to want to know because it shapes so much about this team. When or if Kyrie Irving is coming back? Is he playing? Because he's had some cryptic comments. He loves to jump on a stream and say things that people go, wow, that's a lot of like pyramids and third eyes. What's he on about? Will he play this season? Because he tore his ACL in February. Some people can come back in 10 months. Sometimes it's 12 months. You never yourself until like further on from that. But okay, when will he play or will he play?
Yeah, Kyrie has not really ever come back from an injury early.
No,
and
that's
so that's something we're definitely monitoring with this. He also, the cryptic comment you mentioned was not very cryptic at all. It was like pretty straightforward where he said, don't hold your breath on me coming back next season. That's I guess that could be cryptic. It's also just pretty straight up there as far as I'm concerned. And so if you look at the injury and you say, all right, well, it's an 8 to 12 month injury. Well, if it's a 12-month injury, he comes back February, March even, and then he's got like a month or so to come back. And I don't know how much value that gives you, but that's what we're looking at. The thing I hope that the Mavericks don't do is try and rush him back because they're in a playoff hunt, in a play-in race hunt, and Nico Harrison's like job or reputation is on the line because of the way that this team finishes. And so that's something to definitely keep in mind. But I think if Kyrie is going to come back during this season, then his role will be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. He also doesn't have Luka Dončić next to him anymore. He's going to be carrying a lot of the offensive load for this team when he comes back. And so I'm expecting him to come back with like a month left to go in the season and then just see where we go from there.
That brings us to talking about, we talk about him coming back. And again, you're right. He won't be back in that full role that we've seen in the past. But at the guy they signed in free agency, D'Angelo Russell, like there is a lot. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. There are a lot of players in this team who are big, who are tall, who can't shoot. There's a lot of these guys. D'Lo is none of those things, and he's one of the only guys on this team who is a point guard who has shown he can shoot, although last season was pretty disgusting. And he's someone who can fill that point guard role. So D'Angelo Russell comes in. There's been some talk from old mate Jason Kidd about, Cooper Flagg might be running point guard. But D'Angelo Russell is going to be that point guard, because I get questions and I source questions from people who go, maybe Brandon Williams is able to outplay him, which I want to talk about in a sec. What's your thoughts on the D'Angelo Russell fill-in? Is it enough playmaking? Is it enough shooting to get this team into a, let's say, play-in position?
I think it's enough to do that. I question it after April, right? Going into the playoffs, that's definitely a big question there. But I think D'Angelo Russell could give them enough. Obviously, this team is going to be built around size. It's going to be built around pressure at the rim from some of those bigs. Anthony Davis is going to get his shots, obviously. Cooper Flagg is going to get the ball in his hands a decent amount, but there's enough to go around. This team has a ton of play finishers. Anthony Davis, play finisher. Dereck Lively, Daniel Gafford, Klay Thompson, a lot of play finishers or catch and shoot guys like Max Christie. You got PJ Washington, Caleb Martin. Just go down the board and you're like, man, there's a lot of play finishers. There's not a lot of play makers. And for D'Angelo Russell to come in and be that guy, I think there's going to be a lot of work there for him to do. He's also really good with Anthony Davis. The Mavs needed somebody at the end of last season to kind of unlock Anthony Davis's offensive game a little more than what they did. And I think D'Angelo Russell can do that. He averages 6 assists a game. That's a little surprising to some people who think he's just a chucker, but I think that's an area of his game that I think is going to really show out. He's also basically in a contract year and kind of playing for almost a minimum, where he's trying to prove himself back into being a player of value, to be worth one of those mid-level exceptions, or maybe even more than that. And so I think this is a big thing for him, because he's got that player option going into the season after this one. And so I think that's a big thing for him too.
All right. So the question that, again, I said with Brandon Williams, right? He was really good down the stretch last season. We had all this toing and froing with two ways and days played. And then people go, maybe he can outplay D'Lo, or maybe he can get minutes. The Mavericks at the moment, Nick, have 16 players on full-time contracts. They're only allowed to have 15. Only one of those players is non-guaranteed, and that's Brandon Williams. Now, I guess Dallas Mavericks mascot Dwight Powell could be cut, and his $4 million guarantee, but is Brandon Williams actually going to make this roster? Because, again, they don't actually have any other point guards on this team. Dante Exum's not a point guard anymore. It's D'Angelo Russell. Is Brandon Williams going to make the team? Are they going to cut Prosper? What is going to happen there?
The thought around the team is that they're going to find a way to salary dump Omax in some way. That's been sort of the talk. Brandon Williams' contract is non-guaranteed, and so that's something to definitely think about. That didn't seem like it was possible, or even something they should do, when they didn't have any point guards or guards at all on this team for a little while throughout the offseason. And so that was not something that people really considered. But it is on the table, I guess. Brandon Williams had a really good end of the season. He showed a lot of great stuff, showed a lot of NBA skills. He's a Kyrie mini. He's 6'1", but he's got a lot of Kyrie moves. He finished pretty well last year. He shot it okay. But he only really played 12 games in the real rotation. And it's in March, April. The Mavs were fighting for position. And so they were playing for something. It's not like he was out there on some of these teams that are just throwing away games, or whatever the Raptors did at the end of last season. But he has not proven himself completely. He was a two-way guy that did not look like an NBA player 2 years ago, and then last year he showed a little bit more. And so I'm hopeful for Brandon Williams, but I'm skeptical that he comes in and proves that he's earning of more playing time than D'Angelo Russell, who they brought in, who played in LA. Basically the LA coaching staff is there right now, and ahead of Dante Exum, who is a guy that I think Jason Kidd does still think is a point guard and can still bring the ball up. And they're going to have Cooper Flagg initiate offense. Anthony Davis probably going to initiate offense. And so I don't know that they think that they need a point guard like that.
Yeah, interesting you bring up about March and April basketball, because the Mavs were playing for something. Their opponents, not necessarily. And that's where the March and April stuff, because it's multifactorial. Your team might be playing for something, and this is a big discussion with the Bulls. They might be, they're fighting. That's great. But if the other team isn't, then the importance of those games changes. It's important for one team, but maybe not for the other team, and that changes a lot of that stuff there as well. We're going to come back and talk more about Cooper Flagg and some of the big men on this team in a sec. Before we do that, today's episode, it is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. So it is time for you to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. You might be sinking birdies or making memories with friends. This is a hole-in-one for your energy game. And, when you're on the course, maybe you're terrible at golf. Like me, I don't know. That's an example. That's not real life. I might be great. I might be bad. I'm bad. But getting the 5-hour energy, the transfusion, maybe that gives you that little boost, or it just tastes good as well, which is something good. You want to take some little win out of shooting 150 over 18 holes, and that is where 5-hour energy transfusion comes in. Golf is all about those good times with good people and good flavors, of course. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use the promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. As I bring it back. All right, Nick. 5-hour energy transfusion shots is done. It is in the books. It is now time for us to talk about the number 1 draft pick, which, again, I don't know why old mate Nico Harrison thinks that he, why does he have the idea that he can just put his foot in his mouth, step in piles of shit all over the place, and think it's going to be okay? Oh, have you seen the vision now that we drafted Cooper? Like, my guy, you did nothing about that. That's nothing to do with you. That is luck, so shut up. But that does bring us to talk about Cooper Flagg, because he's on the team. They picked him number 1. He's almost certainly going to have to play, in my opinion, out of position this season because of the way that this roster is terribly constructed. And we've seen Jason Kidd, which he did with Giannis. Yeah, mate, hey, you're a point guard now. Now, Giannis, of course, doesn't play point guard anymore, but he's got these ball handling skills. So we've heard it mentioned a lot of times about Flagg and the ball handling. We've talked a lot about this roster already, about how there's just no point guards. Like, there's no sort of guys on this squad who consider that. So the question will be, again, this is important when I talk about Cooper's fantasy value as we move forward. How much is he going to have the ball in his hands? Where does that put him offensively in the hierarchy? Is he number 2 ball handling usage time behind Anthony Davis? Where does he sit with D'Lo? Like, is that a real thing? Like, we only saw 2 games of him at Summer League. Was there enough flashes there to make you think, yeah, I could see Kidd doing this? And to follow up on that, the second part, if they do put the ball in his hands as a rookie who's not a point guard, how do they expect to win?
Yeah, great questions. The Mavericks are basically like an oxymoron this season. They're a win-now team whose best offensive option is maybe a rookie. So it's like, okay, that doesn't usually work together. With them, Jason Kidd has said that they're going to put the ball in his hands. I love the photo with Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I love your photo with Ted Lasso.
Great choice. That was awesome. I don't ever take photos with people, and that was the one I was like, oh my God, I got to go take a picture with Ted Lasso for sure. So they're going to put the ball in his hands a lot. Jason Kidd specifically mentioned Giannis and specifically mentioned his experience in the past with putting the ball in hands of guys like that. And I think that's the best thing for his development going forward. I do think it's going to be difficult for this Mavericks team to win games if he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. But I don't know, a 6'9", 6'11" pick and roll between Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis sounds like it could be something too. I mean, Cooper Flagg ran 300 pick and roll possessions at Duke. That they put the ball in his hands, and that worked out really well for them. And he was 17 at the beginning of that season, and everybody kept talking about how young he was. And he keeps defying odds. And so I'm not going to put a ceiling on what he can do, even his rookie year, because I think you saw, even just in the little microcosm of Summer League that is not real basketball potentially,
not at all.
But it's like the first game they put the ball in his hands. He took 21 shots, more than he took beside one game at Duke, basically. He just never does that. Went out there, and then the next game he comes in, shot a lot better, got to the free throw line, adjusted, and that's what he does. He adjusts to what the game is going to give him, adjusts to what he's going to bring to the game, and I think that's something we can see from his rookie year, where it might take him a little bit to get there, but he's going to learn. He's going to get there. Coming into his first season at Duke, there's a lot of questions about whether he could be an okay three-point shooter, and then he shot 38% from three his whole year, 44% in conference play, and guys were like, okay, well, he's definitely the number 1 pick now. There's no question about it at this point, and so I'm not going to try and hold Cooper Flagg back in some way. I do understand that rookies don't necessarily lead to winning basketball, but I think it's usually rookies that aren't surrounded by championship quality role players, which is what I think the Mavericks are. And so I think that they can win games. I think they'll be just good enough. I think they'll be on it, within the play-in hunt when Kyrie is coming back. And so I think that they're going to put the ball in his hands a lot. Is that the question you initially asked me?
Basically, yeah. It's where does he sit in that sort of hierarchy. And I agree, he's going to have the ball a lot. He's going to have it. He's going to have plenty of issues with turnovers. He's going to have plenty of issues with efficiency. It'll probably take away some of his defense. I guess I'll bring this other question in because we're going to talk a little bit more about the front court when we come back for the last part of the show. But do you agree that he is not a 3, like that he is long-term a 4, even though it's going to be almost impossible for him to get enough minutes there outside of here? Maybe when the team decides we're going to use the best starting or best closing lineup we've got, like he's going to be playing out on the perimeter and not actually close to the basket. Because one of his big skills, of course, is weak side rim protection and blocking shots and being this rebounding guy, but he's going to be playing out on the perimeter and he's not going to be able to do that. So do you agree that he's going to be sort of out of position because of the way this roster is constructed?
Yeah, it is about the defensive end to me, is that he is better as that rim protector. You want him to be able to roam around, and the Mavericks have maybe the best roam around guy in Anthony Davis like in the league. And so that's a different thing for him. You could argue that the Mavs' 3 best healthy players going into the season are all 4s, like PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Cooper Flagg. And so they are kind of stuck in that sense. And I don't want to throw Cooper Flagg out there defending the best perimeter guards, the best perimeter wings every single night. I want him guarding the bigger wings. I want him to be able to guard the small ball 5 and eventually play like a small ball 5. And there's just no chance that he could do that on this team with a PJ Washington, with an Anthony Davis, with the 2 centers that they have that are going to get minutes too. And so that's where they are with the roster crunch. That I think you're right. I think he is going to be playing out of position a little bit, but he's also like one of the most versatile young stars we've seen come out of college in a long time, where he could play anywhere. And I think we'll learn what his NBA game is going to be in his rookie year, at least what's going to show up really quick, because he can do everything. It's just what things are going to translate immediately in the NBA.
Because the guys that are going to be out there that allegedly can guard the smaller players is going to be D'Lo, who can't and never has been, and Clay, who used to be but can't. Like Clay can't move anymore. He can't guard point guards or shooting guards. Clay can guard ironically 4s, and yeah, that's probably the position that the Mavericks don't need anyone to go and guard. Like he can't.
No 4s are going to score any points on the Mavericks this year.
Never. Everyone's going to be out there 6'10", 6'9", just guarding all those guys. Where the guards are going to be standing there going, "What are we? There's no one out here." Like because it's honestly going to have to be D'Lo getting roasted, or it's going to be Flagg that goes out there, which is going to change the shape of Cooper's skill set versus what we saw at Duke. Now we're going to come back and talk more about that front court in a second, Nick. Before I do that, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish that managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? Well, it can. You might not need to with Monarch Money. If the San Antonio Spurs had Monarch Money, they wouldn't give De'Aaron Fox a maximum contract after they just drafted a point guard at number 2 overall. But maybe they don't have Monarch Money and they don't have my special code offer, but I'll give that to them later on, even though it's too late. With Monarch Money, you're your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, tracking all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Everything in that one app makes it so easy to manage all of your finances, all of your different banks, all of your different investments in that one spot. No multiple logins. It's all there in that one spot. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Okay. We're going to talk about, I've teased it all the way through here, Nick, about these big guys because they have Dereck Lively II. They, for some reason, re-signed Daniel Gafford, and I know that the amount they re-signed him to allows him to be traded this season. That's cool. They've got Anthony Davis, who, despite what Anthony Davis might think, his best position is playing at the 5, and nearly every time that they played games, he would be the closer at the 5, because when you want to win games, you put your best lineup out there, and that means you play your best position, Anthony. And then there's PJ Washington, who, when this team was banged up, out of control last season, a million guys out, he had to do a lot. So, I ask you this question, Nick. Who, in the front court, out of PJ Washington, Dereck Lively, Dwight Powell, Anthony Davis, PJ Washington, even Najee Marshall, who's the loser? Who is the guy that is just going to be like, yeah, like, thanks for the memories, but like, no thanks, you're done now? Like, because they all can't play together. Like, are you playing Cooper at the 2 and PJ at the 3? Because that's a horrific idea, because no one can shoot. So who's missing out?
A horrific idea that the head coach may have suggested
of course
in
he
the
did.
introductory press conference of Cooper Flagg. He suggested they'll play PJ Washington and Cooper Flagg together and potentially in a starting lineup. And so we've been talking about and debating. That's the only real lineup that they've kind of even mentioned, the jumbo lineup of Cooper Flagg at the 2. And there's been a lot of talk. I mean, Jason Kidd mentioned Cooper Flagg could play the 2 on an interview with DLLS over the summer. And then he said Cooper Flagg's going to handle the ball and be a point guard at his introductory press conference. Like, he just keeps moving him down a position every time he talks. I think that the losers in this are going to be PJ and Gafford in some way. I think that unless there's injuries, which is very possible for Anthony Davis, for Dereck Lively, for some of these guys. And so I think it's Gafford that's going to lose minutes. I think it's PJ that's going to have to move to the bench, and I think they are going to start Clay. And it could be Najee Marshall losing some time, but he played pseudo point guard for them at the end of last season and did pretty well. Did not shoot the 3 ball well at all, but finished at the rim better than almost anybody in the NBA. His floater is like legendary. And I think that it's those guys that are going to lose. And Dwight Powell loses more than anybody. I mean, there's just no chance. Like, how many things would have to happen for Dwight Powell to sniff the ball?
Nick, you've just hit the biggest karma button of all time. Like, how many things are going to have to happen for Dwight Powell to start? Watch him start October 31st. Dwight Powell.
That's Edwards was starting games at center for the Mavericks for a long time last year.
The way that Moses Brown was like a key part of this team, and they screwed it up so badly they couldn't even re-sign him. They couldn't even bring him back to get him to play. Kai Jones was like, who's good? Kai Jones. How good? Oh my God, it
was the vision, Josh.
The vision. Yeah, he planned it out perfectly. No notes, no faults, no nothing. But we talk about these, and people will say Gafford is a better player than Lively. I completely disagree. And the only reason that in his time in Dallas, the main reason that Gafford has gotten minutes over Lively is because Lively has gotten hurt. And Nick, unsurprisingly, Dereck Lively is currently hurt. He had surgery on that foot, which the now departed RIP to the medical staff, which caused so much consternation. Woof. After they screwed this up, he's had another surgery. Now, do we expect that Dereck Lively is back opening night? I know they've said that, but do you expect that he's back opening night?
Yeah, do we trust anything the Mavericks say publicly? I don't know. I do expect him to be back. I think that it's a cleanup procedure. I don't think that it'll hold him out for a long extended period of time. So I do expect him to be healthy and ready to go. I will say a lot of Lively's injuries have been these contact, wild injuries where he gets undercut by somebody, he gets smashed in the face and breaks his nose in 3 places, breaks his foot. There's just a lot of injuries like that where it hasn't been these soft tissue type injuries where it's just over and over again. But you could say the same about Anthony Davis too, where it's just a ton of freak injuries that just happen a lot. And so, yeah, I do expect Lively to be back and to be healthy. What
do you think of Dereck Lively's second season? Because obviously he surprising, because when we talked 2 years ago, we said it's very unlikely for a team with these high playoff hopes to start a rookie center out of nowhere. That just doesn't happen. And then he did. And he was really pretty good. He played his role. It was a smallish role, but he was good and he improved and things were looking good. And then last season was at times up and down. I put a lot of that on injury just because of the way that he was sort of banged up at times. But he was pushing to 27, 28 minutes at points, and Gafford would play 17 minutes. And then he would get hurt, and then we have to do this dance again. So how do you think that there was do you change your overall a long-term evaluation of Lively based on what you saw last season, or were the positives enough there where you go, I can see this, he should be pushing to be a 27, 28 minute a night player in year 3 here?
He should be. The only concern that has been brought up to me is that he hasn't played enough games for me to feel confident that he's going to play all the games that are needed, right? Are the injuries just going to keep happening for him and he's just going to keep dealing with injuries, or are we finally going to see a season where he plays 70? Give me 70 games, right? Give me 68 games. Give me something like that. And so that is my one concern, is the injuries. But for his play, really good rim protector, can defend, switching out. We saw can be a 16-game player in the playoffs. He played up until the finals and even played pretty well in the finals. There's been a lot of concern about, can he play without Luka? Was he just a Luka? He's just getting fed by Luka assists all the time, Luka lobs. He played pretty good without Luka, even when he was off. Luka was off the floor and he was still on the team, though. And so I think that's something that is not as big of a concern that I have that some people do have. He's really good in the short roll. The Mavs are going to need somebody to be a playmaker in that spot, and that's something that you didn't need Luka to be able to do. Maybe take the attention off of some other guys, but he can pass the ball really well in the short roll. He has worked on a little bit of a post, a little jump hook move he's been working on a lot. And there's going to be lobs to be had from D'Angelo Russell, from Cooper Flagg, from Anthony Davis. They're gonna play some of that stuff, and I think that Lively is gonna take advantage of a lot of those opportunities, and I think he'll be fine.
I'm looking forward to the Dwight Powell, Dereck Lively pick and rolls that Jason Kidd's going to chuck out there, giving you something to talk about at least, Nick. And what that does is it brings us to the end of the things that we're going to talk about on this show. So I once again thank you for all of your great work and your inspired leadership across over at the Locked On Podcast Network, and everything you do to make me be a better version of myself and to drive this show to the heights that it can get to.
This is the GOAT.
Nick, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show, talking about the Dallas Mavericks. It's going to be a weird team. There's going to, I'll put this out as a guarantee. There's going to be something stupid that happens this season where you're going to be going, what do I do? What do I do? Whether
they never do anything normal, Josh, ever. Like my first year covering the team, Tony Romo had a jersey and was warming up with the team.
Oh my God. I feel, oh my God. Yeah, that is still so long ago that I can't believe that happened, but it did happen. It could be an ownership thing. It could be a coaching thing. It could be a front office thing. It could be a Jason Kidd, like I'm only here watching quote. Like it could be anything that could happen with this team, but you're going to have something to talk about. And if you want to hear people talk about it, the best people to talk about it, Nick and Isaac and old mate Slightly, you're going to have that all covered over at Locked On Mavs. Nick, thank you again for coming on, and I'll see you around.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Nick. And that is the Dallas Mavericks. That is Nick Angstadt. That is Locked On Mavs. And we answered some of the bigger questions there. Again, this is a weird team. But do you think one of the encouraging things there is in how you view your draft is about Cooper Flagg and ball handling? It's going to be rough at times, especially on these defensive stats. And about the fact that Dereck Lively should be ready. And the idea and the projection is that he is playing big minutes, which means Daniel Gafford dead. Don't worry about that. PJ Washington, not enough minutes. Unless injuries strike. And I think they're probably your big takeaways out of that. And also, watch on the Brandon Williams thing. Because he literally might not be on the team. He might get cut and be signed to their third two-way contract. Just be aware of that. Also be aware that you can hit a thumb on this video. You can subscribe. You can leave all that stuff down below. That would be sick, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.